Welcome everyone to SU Football Weekly, presented by Sheraton, Austin, Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. I'm joined by Coach Joe Austin. How are you tonight, Coach?
Doing good, Chuck. Thanks.
We're really excited for this week. We have a travel game to Abilene, taking on the McMurray Warhawks. I always enjoy going to Abilene because there's a couple of restaurants I like to frequent there.
Okay, you have to let me know who those are.
I will. I will after the show. I don't want to give any unsolicited sponsor credit for anyone, especially for a restaurant in Abilene. And we're going to have a little bit of a shortened show tonight. One of our scheduled guests, Charles De La Rosa, senior offensive lineman, was unable to attend. He had some family situation that he had to attend to, and so we wish him well, and we'll talk to him hopefully in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be also joined today by Noah Clarkson. He'll be our student-athlete guest. He's a defensive lineman for the Pirates. But first we'll start with Coach Austin, and we'll spend a little bit of time on this past Saturday, Coach. So obviously it's not the performance that the Pirates expected on Saturday against the number one team in the country. But give us your thoughts on Saturday.
They're a good team.
They sure
I always
are.
tell our players, I like playing these guys. I don't mind being challenged. I don't mind having to be really precise and have things line up how you want them to go in order to have success. And I think it was a fun challenge for our players. I hope it was fun, in that the best players that they're going to see all year for a lot of positions was who they saw on Saturday. And overall, I think our schedule has really helped us. I don't know if anyone noticed, but Cal Lutheran is now in the coaches poll. They're nationally ranked, and ETBU's number one, and so we're 1-2. Our two losses are a nationally ranked team. So hopefully, the quality of our schedule will help us go through. It's the same thing every year. We end up playing a half dozen ranked teams by the time the year's done. But hopefully, that experience will continue to accumulate, and it will really show as the year goes on.
Well, now the Pirates kind of helped the Crusaders out a little bit on Saturday. Not that they need any assistance, but there were some mental errors and such. So what did you tell your players after the game and then again as you started practice this week?
They're a team that forces a lot of teams into errors. Their speed and their athletic ability kind of have a way of making guys get frazzled a little bit. And they did that to us, especially at the beginning of the game. We blew two defensive coverages early on. We didn't get in the right protections on offense, so it was all across the board thing. We didn't place our punts where we wanted to place our punts, and they got return yards. So they have a way, with their skill and their speed and their ability, to force people into making errors. That's one of the challenges about the game when you play them, is it challenges you to be really precise in what you do. So after the game, I said, tip your hat to those guys. Mm-hmm. I told them on Sunday, if anyone even comes close to beating them before the semifinals in the playoff tournament, I'll be shocked. They play Hardin-Simmons this week. Is usually a decent game. Hardin-Simmons doesn't look as strong. You never know, but I'll be surprised if anyone can really give them a serious challenge to the semifinals at the least. And Coach Kriesel, our defense coordinator, thinks that's the most complete UMHB team that we've ever played. They've had a little bit better defenses. They've had defenses that have 10 Division I transfers on them before. They're not there now. I mean, they've had defense players that play in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They don't have that maybe, but their offense is really, really good. And in years past, they haven't had as much of an identity on offense. They haven't been as polished on offense. So to have their offense, defense, and special teams all at a really, really elite level, that's a good ball club. And so they're gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna represent our conference really well, I think. And so once you're done playing them, it's kind of like you can go ahead and root for them and say, hey, make us look good and carry the torch.
Definitely. And despite Saturday, and you mentioned the record 1-2 in conference play, you're 1-1. So you have the opportunity, obviously, still ahead of you to be very successful in this conference. Describe the team's mood heading into this week against McMurray.
I think it's good. What I've challenged our team to do this week is to really be precise at what we're trying to do from a schematic standpoint. know who to block, know how to block them, know how to fit our runs on defense, know how to fit our coverages on defense. If we do that, I think we have a really good opportunity this weekend, but we've got to get into the process of getting all that done. We made a lot of mistakes and errors in practice yesterday, so then in practice I told them, hey, that it's Tuesday. We don't play till Saturday, but as of now, we're not ready to play this football team. So when you come back on Thursday, all the mistakes we made have to be cleaned up. If we make a mistake Thursday, which will happen, it's got to be something different. We can't make the same mistakes on Thursday we made on Tuesday. Otherwise, we're not making the constant improvement that we want to make. So that was my challenge to the team practice yesterday, and hopefully we'll see that come through tomorrow, that we'll have things cleaned up. We'll know how to fit our blitzes. We kind of struggle with that. We'll have our blocking schemes down. We got a package that we kind of put in as a game plan package. It didn't look good on Tuesday. So hopefully we can get those things cleaned up and worked out, because I think that's a big key, is we don't want to get out of the way of anybody. Sometimes, we're getting out of the way. At the beginning of the game against UMHB, we got out of the way. Mm-hmm. We blew 2 coverages and gave them 2 touchdowns. We didn't make them work for it. We got out of the way. Same thing offensively. We had a package to get into empty, force them into man coverage, and we didn't get the protection right and didn't give our quarterback a chance to execute that, so we got out of the way. Don't get out of the way against McMurray. Good football team. They're really coming on. They changed coaches a few years ago. They've gotten better every year. But don't get out of the way. Make them work really hard.
Well, 3 of your first 4 games, including this weekend at McMurray, have been road games. How does dealing with the travel affect your preparation for games, especially for the players?
Well, I guess that's a good question for the players as you bring them on. Year 22 for me, so I guess it doesn't really affect anything from my perspective. I like the trips because my phone doesn't ring when I'm on the airplane, right? And when we're driving certain places where there's no reception, my phone doesn't ring again. So it's actually some time for me to get some work done when we travel versus being in the office. So it doesn't bother me a whole lot. I'm used to the process of going to the hotel and eating on the road. But it's good to get a lot of those out of the way because, as you said, 3 out of the first 4 are on the road. That means we have a lot more home games towards the end of the schedule. So it's always, a mixed bag. But, of course, we went to Belhaven, a really long, longest bus trip we'll take all year, 9 hours there. And we came out and we won. So we handled that really well. So I think by this point, having gone to California on an airplane and Jackson, Mississippi on a bus, I think we've got it figured out to the point where we're going to go to Abilene twice, our next 2 road games. 4 hours to Abilene shouldn't be a very big deal at all. Not at all.
And as you mentioned, that gives you a heavy home schedule down the stretch. And, in my opinion, of course, you would know it a little better than me, but in my opinion, it does give you a bit of an advantage to deal less with travel and focus more on the ins and outs of that particular team for that week. Now, I'm going to move to a tertiary-related football issue. The new gear is out and available for people to go out and purchase with the new emblems.
Oh, cool.
You weren't aware? Because I actually was able to pick up a nice gold polo and a black flex hat, and so I'd recommend that you go out. The school's Twitter account tweeted that out today.
That's great. People are always shocked by the things that no one tells me. Our hot water was out on Monday and Tuesday, and nobody told me.
So the players took cold showers?
Yeah, and nobody told me. I tell my coach all the time, they assume that somehow word gets to me on things like, I didn't know that. So don't assume, Chuck, that I know what's going on.
Okay, well, I thought, again, I was maybe putting some things together because last week you brought some hats, and I thought maybe you're getting rid of some of the older hats to get ready to stock up on the new hats, knowing that it would come out. But,
eventually we'll stock up on new hats for sure, yeah.
Well, I won't need one of those because I bought one today, and so it should be here in about 5 days. And so I would recommend that if you're out there, go to the Southwestern Gear site, and they have a ton of new options with both the primary and the secondary logos, and
nice.
I think they're very sharp. So I would definitely recommend that. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Noah Clarkson here on SU Football Weekly, presented by Sheraton, Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. We'll see you in a minute, Coach.
Southwestern University Football Weekly would like to thank the following corporate sponsors for making this broadcast possible: Antioch, Georgetown, Chapel Realty Group, Roger Chapel, Chick-fil-A, Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, CJ's Catering, Hewlett Chevrolet Buick Volkswagen, Double Dave's Pizza, Eagles Wings Home Services, First Texas Bank, Gary Brown CPA, Georgetown Commercial Properties, Georgetown Shirt Company, Georgetown Title, Groove Line Productions, HEB, Hello Georgetown,
How's he doing now?
John F. Lewis CPA, Mighty Fine, Minuteman Press Waterboy Graphics, Primerica Financial Solutions Derek McGill, Ross and Champion CPAs, Rudy's, St. David's Georgetown Hospital, Schlotsky's, Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center, Stephanie Featherstone State Farm, Upstream Investment Partners Scott Olson.
Welcome back to SU Football Weekly, presented by the Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. Joining me now is Noah Clarkson. How are you, Noah?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. You get the soreness out from Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Had plenty of work out there on the field. You were causing a little bit of havoc in the backfield, and if I recall correctly, you were at least in on a sack, if not got a sack. Is that correct?
I think I helped out on one. Yes, sir.
Right. And there were plenty of pressures, and you know, they had a very mobile quarterback. So talk a little bit about how, as a defensive lineman, you deal with a quarterback who doesn't stay in the pocket like that, one that's similar to Landry, who'll just take off running. Give us your thoughts on those guys, because they're littered in this conference.
Yeah, like you said, I think having Landry, going against him in practice helps us out a lot with dealing with those kind of quarterbacks, because he's probably the best guy to practice against when it comes to that. He's one of the quicker ones, and I think the best way to deal with that is when you get past like an offensive lineman, just run through him and not try to break down, and because he's going to make you miss.
Right.
Because usually quarterback's a little more agile than defensive linemen, but
On average.
Yeah.
So, that's a very intelligent response to that question, because you see numerous linemen, when they break through the initial offensive line, break down and try to tackle a quick, run like a deer quarterback, and they can make you look bad.
Yes, sir. That's another thing is just your eyes. You gotta focus on where you gotta keep your eyes just to make the tackle and run through his near hip, and if you just need to focus on his upfield shoulder so he can't cut back on you and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. So how does that compare to being prepared for the run game, where a quarterback where they may set up what appears to be a pass, but then it's a draw? Or
so in that situation, eyes is a big thing. You just gotta realize your keys. You gotta look at your offensive linemen, see if they're pass blocking or run blocking, and I think just keeping your eyes on your keys is a big deal in that. So.
And those keys may change from week to week, right? Because you may go against an offense that is a run-pass option offense, where it may appear like they're running the football, but they may also be setting up a pass quickly.
Yeah, and that's another thing is for defensive linemen, it's a tough offense to go against, because you never know if they're going to try to run the ball or they're going to quick pass, and you just gotta go full speed and see where the ball is and head that way and try to get the guy down on the ground.
Okay. Now, I talked with Coach a little bit about the heavy road games here on the first part of the season, and a little home heavy towards the end. You've made all the trips, obviously. Talk a little bit about your experience in California.
Oh, yeah, I think it was incredible. I think it was a great first game to see just where we were as a team. And like Coach said, they're a good football team. They're 3-0 right now, and I think it was a great testament to see where the team was and see where we're headed. So I think that going to California was a good experience for a lot of younger guys as well. it was nice to see how they adjusted to like a long trip and flying. And sometimes some of the guys, it was the first time for them flying, and it was just good to see how guys reacted to a long trip like that.
So, give us your thoughts on some of the non-football related parts of the travel, like when we visited Santa Monica Beach.
I think despite the ending of the game, I think it was great to see guys come together and go to the beach, go to the mall, and get to experience that, because not a lot of people get to experience going out of state like that, and it's a lot of guys' first time in California. So
it was my first time to be in California.
Mine as well.
Well, you look like you're from California.
I got told that quite a bit.
From the folks in California?
Yes.
So did they mistake you for anyone famous?
No, but
nobody said, "Hey, Fabio," or anything like that.
No. A couple people commented on like lifting and stuff like that, but nothing.
Yeah, you look
ridiculous.
like you know your way around a weight room.
I try to.
We'll talk about the importance of preparation in a weight room, or not necessarily film study, but just that off-season stuff, the remaining in condition, the staying healthy, the eating the right things, staying hydrated, and really focusing on getting some guns like that.
Yeah, so I think that the weight room is a huge part of football, especially as a defensive lineman or any position in that matter. I mean, it definitely helps with keeping healthy and helps with tackling, helps with throwing or blocking, depending on which side of the ball you're on. And I think that just once people figure that out and they realize that it's not good to slack in the weight room and stuff like that, that they'll become better football players just all around. It helps you be more explosive. It helps you hold your gap, or for an offensive lineman, block better, or receiver block better, and it just keeps people healthy, makes them look good out on the field.
Well, for a position like yours, and while you're on the end, right?
Defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle. So you're facing double teams all the time.
Yes, sir.
So you have to really be ready, strength-wise, to deal with that. And a lot of that, besides strength, is just positioning and leverage and things like that. And give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So as one of the smaller defensive tackles, I think that for me, it's good to be a little bit stronger and have work on leverage and technique, because the low man in football wins. That's who always wins. I mean,
yes.
You'll see 200-300 pound linemen going against me, and I'm not getting pushed around because I'm playing lower, and I get after it in the weight room, and I really take pride in the weight room and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, and Coach mentioned it last week. I think it was one of the Kelseys talked about Tell the Truth Tuesday on Film Time, and so when you're watching yourself on film, I mean, you've got to take pride in your individual performance when you're watching that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, when watching film, I definitely am pretty hard on myself. I critique myself.
I think everyone is.
Yeah. So, but I can tell when I do good and when I do something wrong, and even if it's something as small as just hand placement on a center or a guard or something, I'm gonna take that and work on that during practice in the next week.
Now, and we'll talk more about McMurray with Coach in the next segment, but this Warhawk team, their first game got canceled against Trinity, and then they have 2 games that they've lost, but they're offensively they've put up some points and numbers. So what do you know about the Warhawks, and what can you expect from a defensive lineman's perspective?
For me, I think that it's going in and having the confidence that we've never lost these guys, but like Coach said, we're not going to get out of the way of anyone, and I think it's a lot of preparation for the whole team. I think that as a defensive lineman, just watching tendencies that offensive linemen have when they do certain plays, and I mean, a lot of it is just being fast off the ball and being faster than those guys, because they have some pretty big guys on the offensive line. But yeah, I think that plays a big role in watching film and just preparing.
Well, and as a senior, as a starter on the defense, by default, you become a leader for your team, right?
Yes, sir.
Talk about the importance of that, both in a demonstration type way, look at the way that you have to work, but also from a more intellectual perspective.
I think it's important to, go out with a good attitude in practice, go out with a good attitude in the game times, even if something's not going right. Because being a senior, a lot of younger guys look up to you. And I think it's important to keep your composure as best as possible, even if something's not going your way. If something bad happens, someone gets hurt, you got to, like the last weekend, one of our defensive tackles, he got injured, and we had some younger guys that needed to step up and be ready just in case, and I think that's important to as a senior to show that you're confident in even those younger guys in case they, their number gets called.
Right. Well, and, as I said, they're watching you ultimately to see how you work and how you apply yourself in a day-to-day basis towards your football life and your school life, as well as your social life. And, when you're on a long road trip, and I've mentioned this in other interviews, I get to observe the team when I travel with you guys. And I think it's obvious that a lot of the younger guys do look up to you and guys that are seniors on this squad. So it's really important for you to, make sure that you're available for those younger guys when they need it. And demonstrate, like obviously you've been doing in the weight room. So want to thank you for joining us tonight, Noah, and I wish you luck against the Warhawks on Saturday. And we'll be right back in a minute with SU Football Weekly, presented by the Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center.
Southwestern University Football Weekly would like to thank the following corporate sponsors for making this broadcast possible: Antioch, Georgetown; Chapel Realty Group, Roger Chapel; Chick-fil-A; Chisholm Trail Pediatrics; CJ's Catering; Hewlett Chevrolet Buick Volkswagen; Double Dave's Pizza; Eagles Wings Home Services; First Texas Bank; Gary Brown CPA; Georgetown Commercial Properties; Georgetown Shirt Company; Georgetown Title; Groove Line Productions; HEB; Hello Georgetown; John F. Lewis CPA; Mighty Fine; Minuteman Press Waterboy Graphics; Primerica Financial Solutions Derek McGill; Ross & Champion CPAs; Rudy's; St. David's Georgetown Hospital; Schlotzsky's; Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center; Stephanie Featherstone State Farm; Upstream Investment Partners Scott Olson; Whataburger, and Wolf Ranch. Be sure to thank these local businesses for sponsoring your Southwestern Pirates. Southwestern University Football Weekly would like to thank the following corporate sponsors for making this broadcast possible: Antioch, Georgetown; Chapel Realty Group, Roger Chapel; Chick-fil-A; Chisholm Trail Pediatrics; CJ's Catering; Hewlett Chevrolet Buick Volkswagen; Double Dave's Pizza; Eagles Wings Home Services; First Texas Bank; Gary Brown CPA; Georgetown Commercial Properties; Georgetown Shirt Company.
Welcome back to SU Football Weekly, presented by the Sheraton Austin Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center. As I mentioned, we typically would have another player. Charles De La Rosa was scheduled here for tonight, but he had some family business he needed to attend to, and we wish him well. And so we'll move into the final segment with Coach Austin to discuss the upcoming game with the McMurray Warhawks. Now, Coach, as I mentioned to Noah, the team is McMurray. They're 0-2 in conference play. They dropped their opening conference game to Howard Payne 42-36, and they kind of hung around with Texas Baptist University, another pretty good football team, by a score of 24-15. So despite the 0-2 record, we're running up against, and you mentioned it earlier, a pretty good McMurray Warhawk football team. Give us a little bit of your thoughts on the team.
They are a pretty good team. They were 2-3 last year, and it was their coach's second year last year, and now he's in his third year. And I know they're feeling good about their progress. And as you mentioned, they've they lost just a 6-point game in their opener. But for Howard Payne, it was their second game because McMurray's first game got canceled. And so your first game's always hard. So to be within 6 points is pretty darn good. And then they came back against ETBU, who's nationally ranked, and kept it within 9 points. And last time they played them, it was within a touchdown as well. So they played that team really, really well, better than we have sometimes. And so they've done really well against East Texas Baptist. So they're a good team. They've developed good talent. They've kept players around. Their head coach obviously has been there for 3 years now, so he's in his third or fourth recruiting class. And a lot of guys you can tell are buying into what they want to do and what their style is. He's an offensive coach by pedigree, and so he's really heavily involved in what they do offensively. And they're developing, as you mentioned, a good offense. They've scored points against the teams that they've played. They distribute the ball really well, and so it'll be a challenge. Their defense is unique, which I think for them is a good idea. They're not cookie cutter. They're not just like the other teams that we're going to play, which makes you have to work hard against them, figure out where they are and how to block them, and guess and try to anticipate where they're going to be. So it will be a good challenge, and it's their not homecoming, but their Hall of Fame weekend. So they've got some festivities. They're going to hopefully have a good crowd. Everybody likes an environment, especially after last year. We appreciate it. So it's going to be a test. I know they feel really good about their progress. Last time we played them 2 years ago, they made us work really hard. They had the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win, and we were able to stop them. So as you said, it's a pretty good team, and they're going to give us a really good effort, no doubt.
Well, and as you mentioned, they have a lot of athletes on the offensive side of the ball, and they spread the ball around quite a bit. Give us your thoughts on their quarterback position and their passing attack.
Well, they're pretty balanced, and a lot of what they do is a run-pass option game. So sometimes teams are going to pick what they want to be attacked with. Do you want to force them to give it? Do you want to force them to pull it and throw it? So they're good at both. Little bit unknown as far as who their starting quarterback will be. Their starter went out of the game last week.
Okay.
Don't know if that's a long-term injury, a short-term injury, what that might be. But they've played both quarterbacks, and we've seen both quarterbacks on film. Both of them can distribute the ball. They do really well in the decision-making, which is involved in their offense. So it makes them both good players at distributing the ball to as you said, their athletes on the perimeter are good athletes. And that's their quarterback's job, is to determine if it's going to be a run or a pass based on what the defense gives them, and then distribute the ball, whether it's giving it or throwing it to somebody if they vacate an area.
Well, and quarterbacks will have a tendency sometimes, they don't always make the right read. If they're indecisive, they're going to go with what they are most comfortable with, whether that's handing the ball off or throwing it. And because they're moving into quarterbacks and playing both, you're limited in what you can assess of those guys. How do you deal with that when you're coming into a game like that?
Well, they don't change their scheme based on which quarterback is in. It's not like they have one package for this guy, one package for that guy. The plays they're going to run, I think, are going to be pretty consistent. And that allows us to prepare for their team more so than one quarterback. I think one of their guys is a little bit more of a pocket passer. He'd rather stay in there and deliver it. One of their guys is really comfortable running. So I think maybe from a third down standpoint, we would maybe think about attacking one the other way. One, keep him in the pocket. One, flush him out of the pocket. So there are some subtle nuances, but from just a general perspective, when you're playing against them on 1st and 10, it doesn't really matter a whole lot which player's in there because they're going to run the same 1st and 10 plays.
Right.
It's just a little bit more situations, whether it be third down or red zone, where they may do some things a little bit differently based on the players. But I think we've seen enough of both players to be able to have a good plan going forward.
Well, now your offense and the McMurray defense, they have given up points this season, and that may be an area where we can consider it as a strength going into tonight or Saturday's game. So give us your thoughts on that and how we're going to, without giving away too much, obviously.
The two offensives that they played are really good. ETBU has been the best offense in the nation before. Number one, number two, top five, a bunch. And Howard Payne's offense is really good as well. They've really focused on offense and recruiting and development. So I don't think you can necessarily judge the book by its cover from their first two games. Obviously, we're hoping to come in and have similar success. But I think what McMurray's going to do is going to kind of be like what I talked about. They're going to try to be really solid in what they do and make teams work hard to beat them. And in the first 2 weeks, teams have been good enough to beat them. At times, score some points here and there. But I think they're going to be really solid in what they do. I think they know what they do well, and they're going to make us work. Now, I think we can have success against them, and that's my expectation. But again, I don't think you can judge the book by its cover. There's plenty of games to see who they really are, but the offensive they've played so far are really good. Hopefully we're a third really good offense that they have to see.
Yes, that would be nice. Now, one of the things that Mary Hardin Baylor took away from Southwestern is our kick return game, both on kickoffs and in punt coverage, which is, to me, it's a real weapon for the Pirates. What can we expect in that? Or do we see a similar situation? Do they have a good enough kicker where they can clear it, force a touchback every kickoff? Or
their kicker is good. I mean, he's kicked touchbacks. When you play in Abilene, it always seems to be windy. So sometimes the ball's sailing through the uprights darn near on kickoffs, and sometimes you can barely get it to the 20. So there might be a little bit of that. I don't think there's going to be a big wind this Saturday, but we'll see. Sometimes you look at your weather app and it says it's like a 4-mile-an-hour wind and you can't hardly stand up, right? And sometimes it says it's a 20-mile-an-hour wind and it doesn't really affect the game. Maybe it's hitting the back of the stadium or something. But they have a good kicker, and so I think they'll have some good schemes. Their players try hard on special teams, which is a big place to start from, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to have guys out there that are going to give effort.
That's how you make a name for yourself.
It's certainly one way to do it, and you've got to be able to be unselfish and just go really hard. I mean, I remember one of the best things about Pee Wee football is you learn to not be afraid of contact. And I remember lining up to cover kickoffs and being scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what direction people are. And they're all my same size and my same weight, but you're running down there looking at the ball, and there's guys coming this way to block you or that way to block you. So you got to have some. You got to have some courage to cover kickoffs in college football, and they've got guys that are willing to do that.
Well, and even on punt coverage, those gunners are going down there really fast. So if you're the punt returner, you've got to concentrate on fielding that punt as well as keep your eye, at least the corner of your eye, on those guys coming down hard on you.
For sure.
And talk about your return game, because you've got some skilled guys there that, when given an opportunity, come up with big returns. Austin Castilleja, Elijah Norris, and a couple of other guys.
Yes, Austin's had a lot of really good returns over his career. He's been really consistent for us. A player that I trust thoroughly, a player I know our team trusts on our kickoff game. And as you said, Eli Norris has done a good job as well. We lost Adrian Garza early in the season. Mm-hmm. He was a third guy that can be in that mix. There's a few younger guys that are developing as well. But I'd like to see our kickoff return game be a good bright spot for us. Austin had one out past midfield or close to midfield in the Cal Lutheran game. So hopefully we can do a good job there. JJ Slack, has helped us in our punt return game. We move him around a lot. He's been back there and caught some punts and returned them. We've had him up on the line of scrimmage, rushing and blocking punts. So good, I guess a good wild card for us. And probably someone that teams, I would guess, are going to kind of have an idea on where number 15 is.
Right.
Whether he's going to try to block it, try to return it, whatever it might be.
Do they finger him during the game? There's 15. Block him.
No, he's like really small. So
they don't see him?
They're kind of like that guy.
They don't believe it. Okay, Coach. I don't want to dig too deep into the game plan with the Warhawks. So, I want to focus a little bit more on the travel aspect, because you keep saying that you're accustomed to it, but you have to kind of bring the players into being accustomed to it each and every year, because every year you're rolling out some guys and then you're bringing in some new freshmen. So talk about that a little bit. While you may enjoy the travel, it's a whole new experience.
I never said I enjoyed it.
Well, you mentioned how you could get some work done. So,
well, we train our guys on the expectations when we travel. We talk about it in training camp. We talk about it all through the weeks where we're going to travel. And what I want our guys that are learning to travel and are new to that process is to not have to wander around and not know what the expectations are. So, whatever the dress code is, it's really clear. Whatever the times are, it's really clear. And we make sure they know what's going on and what to expect and where they're supposed to be. We talk about it verbally, then I email it out to them. We just try to make sure that nothing slides through the cracks. They know where they're supposed to be. When we pull up to the hotel, for example, the hotel may not be ready for us. They still may be processing keys or doing whatever. So our team knows you just sit there, and then when we're ready to go in the hotel, we'll give the all clear. Same thing with go to a restaurant. They may not be ready for us yet. So we've got good processes in place. I think our old guys that have done it really do a good job of kind of showing folks around. But basically, if you're new, it comes down to you just need to follow the herd. Just wherever they go, you need to be with them and don't miss your times. We didn't do a great job making our times on the California trip, which ended up harming too many things, but it can get stressful. If you're going to the airport and one guy's 10 minutes late for the bus, that's a big deal, especially in California traffic. So we try to head that all off and talk about what the expectations are, what the timing is. And again, I think by setting clear expectations and giving them some training and some good guidance from our older players, it all seems to go pretty well. It's a big group. As you know, you've traveled with us. I'm going to guess it's a little bit more difficult than a basketball team with 12 or some of the smaller roster teams. Maybe there's different intricacies of that, but we're traveling with 80 people.
Right.
And last year we're going with
80 college students.
80 college students. I mean, and imagine last year we had to take like a jillion buses because everybody had to have their own bus.
Right.
And so that added more layers of it. And believe it or not, sometimes the bus drivers are the toughest to train. We want to kind of travel in a caravan, and they want to take their own detours and side trips. And I'm like, okay, I'm paying you. Can you stick with the group? And so sometimes that can be the biggest challenge.
Well, and we in that trip to Belhaven, we had a pretty good bus driver, and then we had one that was a little bit iffy.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah. Now we talked a little bit earlier about the road games at the beginning of the year and the heavier home slate towards the end of this season. Talk a little bit about in-season recruiting, and from time to time you'll bring in some of those recruits for a home game. Talk about that a little bit, because how does that affect preparation? And it's just an additional thing.
Well, we've got duties within our staff. We have an operations director that's planning the travel, that's booking the hotels and booking the buses and booking the meals, and we have a recruiting coordinator that's doing the same thing from the recruiting standpoint. So he's coordinating visits when players come to games, when players come to campus. So it's not distracting to anyone. It's just part of our processes and part of what our duties are. So when we start having visits again, our next home game, it won't be a big deal. We'll discuss it in our staff meetings. We'll know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, what the itinerary is. Another great thing is that a lot of our coaching staff has been together for a long time. So a lot of the times it feels like we're on autopilot with these processes. It's easy for us to coordinate a game day visit or coordinate an official visit or coordinate a bus trip because we've been doing it together for quite a few years. Okay.
Well, Coach, that's going to be it for tonight's show. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank Sheraton, Austin, Georgetown Hotel and Conference Center for hosting us. Remember, the game starts at 4 p.m. on Saturday in Abilene. If you can make it out to Abilene, I'd recommend that you come live. It is always a lot more fun live. If not, make sure you tune in to the broadcast. We'll be bringing it to you live. Thank you for joining us, Coach, and thank everyone for coming out. We'll see you next time.
Hi, Mom.